Distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and privilege for me to be an integral part of this interesting evening once again for a knowledge sharing. We live in a changing world. Change is happening around the world on account of globalization. Change is also happening on account of re-regulation. What we used to have, deregulation, in the last 4 years is getting reset as re-regulation. Technology and consumerism, we live in a Facebook world. We are all content providers. Financial economies are converting as real. Real economies are redefining their scope and performance. Mixed economies are still performing, yet struggling on account of the global financial crisis. What started as a liquidity crisis way back in 2008 has changed into a funding crisis today. It is a sovereign crisis. We live in an interconnected world, interdependent world. If you look at the global growth in real terms, still global financial stability is at stake. America is reeling under pressure. The recent report indicates housing market still under recovery. Non-farm payroll indicates not less than 8.1% is unemployment. And again, the purchasing power parity has not improved. American economy is not going to grow not more than 1.5% for the coming quarter. Extraordinary turbulence. Global growth in total is not going to be more than 3.3%. Originally what was conceived as nearing 4% during October last year now has been contracting and confined to 3.3%. Clearly, euro is in disintegration. The monetary policy and fiscal policy are not converging. While monetary policy is centralized, fiscal policy is decentralized. There's an absolute contagion effect. It is not confined to Greece alone. Greece, Portugal, Italy, Spain. These are the nations today have lived beyond their means. It has got wider implications in global financial stability. While this region has been insulated in terms of macroeconomic fundamentals, we are not isolated from the global crisis. We have seen emerging markets are also running through extraordinary downturn. The risk of downturn visible. China is slowing down. India, as a functional democracy, coming to terms, but at the same time, the inflation outweighs the growth. It's practically running into parliamentary stalemate and stagflation. That's the reflection we have seen. Japan, again, debt to gross debt to GDP is beyond normalcy. This is the world we're in. This is the instability in global governance. We have seen communism has changed. Capitalism is altering its form and substance. Mixed economies today is redefining their framework. In the Arab world, the last 1 year and a half, we are witnessing extraordinary transformation. It started with Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria. Extraordinary telling story for us to see. People power dictate the rest. That's the world we're in. That's the challenge we have posed to. In this new world order, there are new opportunities. Clearly, financial economies are converting as real. We need to set in new standards, universal standards in terms of accounting, valuation, and again, securitization. These changes are real. What was once called as G7 has become G8, G8 has become G20. Global governance is getting its new dictum. Financial markets, again, are gambling grounds. Printing money has improved the liquidity. Liquidity has been abundantly supplied across the global markets. The hard money transcended borders and has improved the liquidity, and stock market was inflated. Again, when it comes to currency market, when you start printing money, your currency get weakened. When American economy has got higher liquidity, clearly the dollar is getting weakened. against dollar as a universal currency today, the rest of the currencies are getting strengthened. If you look at the current development, QE3 is due. Last week, after the non-farm payrolls reflection, there is a possibility of QE3. That's what the Federal Reserve Chairman is saying, Ben Bernanke. What does it mean? It means additional money supply, additional liquidity. That doesn't mean there is a real growth. Conceptually, we have seen reflection of currency market, currency war rather, resulting in trade war. Currency also dictates a clear correlation in real response to changing dynamics. You have commodity market. When dollar is getting weakened, people hedge the risk by going for commodity futures. That has got an impact, whether it is oil or gold or silver or precious metals or industrial metals. You have a reflection we have seen. If you look at the bond market, the region has been stable. If you look at one part of the world where institutions, sovereigns or corporate could borrow cost effectively, that's this region. Purely because of the very strong macroeconomic fundamentals and also a very strong optimistic and futuristic fiscal surplus. When oil is quoting $116, Brent and New Mexico is quoting at $96, clearly everyone's seeing the stability in the region in terms of the overall current account surplus, fiscal surplus, investable surplus, what you call sovereign funds. That's the reflection we have seen. If you look at the region as a whole, in 2012, we should be reporting not less than fiscal year 2012 to 13, we should be reporting not less than 1.6 trillion, taking average oil in the range of $70 to $75. There are countries who have specified at 60 for their fiscal framework, 65 for fiscal framework, 75 for their framework. Clearly, if you look at the overall current account surplus, investable surplus, we have reasons to believe this region will run not less than 20 to 25% current account surplus. Fiscal surplus, not less than 15 to 20%. That's a very financially stable and functional environment. If you look at the bond market, credit default swap, what we call it, we have seen institutions who have gone and borrowed at a lesser cost. Credit default swap rate, if I have to exhibit, Qatar is 105 points. Saudi is 95 points. When it comes to Abu Dhabi, it is 105 points. Bahrain is 262 points. And again, Dubai is 285. That's the reflection we have seen. The international investors, private equity or hedge funds, has got confidence in the region. That's the reflection clearly shows the debt procurement ability. Unlike Spain or Italy today, we have the capacity to borrow. The region has got enormous amount of long-term financial stability. While we are insulated in terms of macroeconomic stability, we are not isolated from the crisis, as I said. If you look at the regional breakup, extraordinary prospects in terms of the overall government expenditure, especially after the Arab Spring. Conceptually, the political progression is contingent on the social progression. There's an absolute convergence between political progression, social progression, and the economic progression. That's what we have seen. If you look at the fiscal framework, each and every country has put in. Countries like Qatar is going to spend in the next 5 years, they have conceived Vision 2030. Oman has conceived Vision 2020. Saudi has conceived Vision 2020. These are long-term vision, and you need to develop strategic roadmap as well. If you look at the roadmap, we have governing evidence for us to see tremendous amount of investments is going on the human development side. It is the human empowerment, human dignity, which drives the change. That's what the reflection we have seen in the last 1.5 years. Countries like Saudi are setting over 54% of their budget expenditure towards healthcare and education, housing. That shows what sort of social transformation likely to take place, what sort of individual empowerment, dignity has been factored into the fiscal expenditure. If you look at Qatar, as I said, education was conceived way back in 1995 rather. extraordinary transformation. Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, Texas A&M, Virginia Common. Education City has been founded way back in 1995. Budgets last 14, 15 years, it has been running on fiscal and current account surplus. Today, it's a very active sovereign funds over $100 billion. If you look at the overall reflection in the government expenditure, Saudi, as I said, 805 billion Saudi riyal, 444 billion is going on human development. That's an opportunity. There are many projects. Airport, seaport, road, rail, utilities. These are all real opportunities. Real government expenditure is going to drive the change in the local space in terms of projects, in terms of trade, in terms of investments, in terms of banking, in terms of the overall infrastructure creations. We have a clear evidence for us to see this region is financially stable. This region, if I look at a bigger picture, and block 6 states put together, working in close cooperation and coordination, that's a real opportunity for us to see through. En bloc, how do we promote bilateral trade, investment, banking, and finance? Kuwait itself, if you look at the bigger picture, a GDP in dollar terms, not less than $200 billion for this year and again next year. The budget, of course, needs to be approved with the new parliament in the making. If you also look at the per capita, it is $51,000 per capita. If you look at the overall current account surplus as a percentage of GDP, it is over 51%. That's extraordinary. There is a long-term financial stability. Cautiously, you can be optimistic in real response to changing dynamics. That's what we have seen. So where else you will find which part of the world where you will have current account surplus as well as investable surplus? So there's no question about the economic viability. Strong economic fundamentals are the driving force. How do we recognize this opportunity? That is the very purpose of this session. What are the opportunities in real terms we have? What are the projects in the making? If you look at Kuwait, it is Silk City. Al Zarour refinery, again, desalinization Zarour. And when it comes to Al Sabah University, we have Metropolitan Rail coming up. So projects are outlined by every single state. Qatar itself has got non-hydrocarbon, non-oil and gas, if you look at it, over 340 billion Qatari riyals. That's a huge amount. If you look at the overall infrastructure creation, 130 billion, including 2022. The World Cup is in the making. The airport is expanding. Seaport is expanding. Rail network, metro rail, GCC-wide rail network is shaping up. And we need to conceptualize and see how you will redefine your business model. People are interconnected, interdependent. You don't need to be location-centric. You have to be information-centric. You have to be customer-centric. We look at the market as one, as an enterprise, as an institution. We all have to look at the business model as one single wall, one single region, one single enterprise. Then you set in standards which are global. You set in standards, revenue models or cost models which are global. That needs to be conceptualized. That's where you need to set in a new vision. That's the very purpose of this session. What are the opportunities? If this region is not an opportunity, which is the region of the world today, is stable and functional. While we have geopolitical reflection clearly creating turbulence, we also see the brighter side of things. That is the very purpose of these sessions for us to see through today. Me and my panel is going to reflect on the current level of opportunities. We coined, for the purpose of this reason, knowledge sharing. In concept, project, what are they? What are the projects which are visibly showcased by their fiscal policy, fiscal expenditure, which are going to drive the trade cycle? That's what we're going to showcase. When we see the opportunity, we also have to look at the risk. That's precisely the reason today I have invited two of the finest industry experts in insurance terms who are going to showcase the risk identification as well as risk solutions. We all know the region is going through extraordinary turbulence in terms of social progressions. We also have to realize income needs to be distributed. We also have to realize the wealth needs to be distributed. We also have to realize unemployment has to be minimized. SME is a solution. Small and medium-sized entrepreneurship is a solution. That's why every part of the GCC states today, they are advocating clear governance for SME authorities. Billions of dollars have been earmarked for SME development. Significant portion of your workmanship today, labor force, is all confined to SME. Creating working capital for them, making sure funded and non-funded collaborations comes for them, making sure they have a sustainable business journey. That's what we have an opportunity. So we have called SME expert as well for this elite panel. With this preface, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon the fellow speakers through Iman. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.